I'm walking down this road, I know my feet trod 100 times before. Paved with good intentions, but potholes are my quest for something more. I set out on my own again, determined to win this civil war. All the promises I made washed away like sand on the shore. How long before I truly trust you? How long before I live like you really care? What will it take before I break down on my knees? God, I feel I'm out here on my own, walking down this empty road alone. Every morning when I rise, I tell myself, Dale is your lead. Feet upon the floor, I shove out through the door, tripping over me. But about the time the sun goes down, I look around, take stock of what I see. All my failures rush at me like endless advertisements for bad dreams. How long before I truly trust you? How long before I live like you really care? What will it take before I break down on my knees? God, I feel I'm out here on my own, walking down this empty road alone. My soul's a thin, my spirit's worn, my knees are ripped, my jeans are torn, my head is aching, my vision's blurred, my heart is breaking, I'm wanting cure. How long before I truly trust you? How long before I live like you really care? What will it take before I break down on my knees? God, I feel I'm out here on my own. Please don't leave me here alone. All I really want to do is go home. Until then, I'm walking down this road. Walking. Oh, I'm walking. Tonight is kind of songs of grace, or a short tour through my life. I hope you enjoy it. Some of you may know some of the songs. Some of you may not. I suppose that's always the case. That was really dumb, wasn't it? I suppose you should know them or you won't, right? Each one will be drawn from kind of lessons where my life intersected with the Gospel of John. And what I'm hoping you can take away is the idea that if God can love someone like me, God can love anybody. And I mean that seriously as I walk through kind of some of the stories. And the last one's really taken from the story at the end of the Gospel of John, John chapter 21, when Jesus is talking to Peter and John and says, look, here's your road ahead of you. And sometimes I'm sure they felt they were walking alone, but they knew Jesus had said, I'll be there. This one's actually taken from John chapter 2. At a time in my life where, again, I don't know if this is your story, this is just mine. where I really felt like, man, I'm not doing anything right. There was a time of crisis in the mid-90s. I have 2 little kids, and I was given the joyful task of having to close a church, which was not a joyful task. And my wife had faced a pretty serious, we thought it was ovarian cancer, and we didn't know until they went in, and it wasn't, praise God. But with everything else, my father died, and we had a bankruptcy, and just everything snowballed. And it was like, wow, that whole story about Midas where everything we touch turns to gold, this was like the opposite. And it was in the middle of that wrestling with, I was like, okay, God, you do miracles in the Old Testament. What can you do with me? Can you still change this plane? Is there grace still enough to change this life into something better? And that's kind of what this song is about.
If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are gone.
Everything is brand new. Can you still bring wine from the water? Every day I'm alive is a struggle to breathe. Things I tell myself, others telling me, just give up, you'll never be any good. Like a wedding guest at a feast of old, or an alchemist turning lead to gold. I keep asking myself, can you still turn wine from the water? There's this heart I see, struggling to believe you can change me. Earthen jar I bring, filled with longing to be loved by you, made new. Can you still bring wine from the water? Everybody here has a story. That's the cool thing about the human race, is we're people of stories. We're drawn to stories. We love the Old Testament stories. Most people can quote the stories from the Old Testament, at least know the passages, but most of us can't quote Romans or quote large sections of 1 Thessalonians. My story starts when I was really little. There's some pictures come up. A series of pictures here that up on the, for you, the top left. That's me at about 8 months old. I'm told, I know, surprised to be like, wow, he looks kind of sanguine, sort of. Yeah. May have been, I don't know. And as I look at those pictures, they tell a story. I'm there, I'm trying to help my favorite uncle. I can say that now because they're all passed away, so it's not going to offend anybody. But my Uncle Lloyd, who apparently I look most alike, he's working on repairing a machine, and I'm there trying to help him. I don't know what I thought I was doing anyway. I'm in a little onesie with kind of thing. But between all those three pictures, my cousins and myself and my uncle, and that last one, which is my first grade picture, something happens. And you may be able to see it. I can see it in the face. To me, it looks different. And when I was young, little, part of my story begins happy-go-lucky, but in there, in between, by that last picture, I had been sexually abused and molested by a neighbor. And that shaped and changed my view of myself, how I saw the world, how I saw the universe, my picture of God, everything. And I know that it's not just an uncomfortable topic, because we don't like to talk about it. And I know there's been people who've been brave enough during chapel to discuss it. But here's the thing, given the stats, it happens a lot more often than we'd like to admit. And here I am to tell you that it will have a long impact, but it's not the end of the story. It's not the finale on your life. For me, it took a long time to really even process. And still, it changes how I look at things. It changed how I saw myself. It changed how I parented. It changes how I perceive students in class at times. It's the reason, one of the major reasons why you all have to write journals. For those who are watching online, I have some of my students here, and they're so that was referenced to them. If you're like, journals? Who's writing journals? Who came to a concert to write journals? Anyway. And that's part of it, because I didn't have an outlet. First person I told was my soon-to-be wife. We were at the stage in our relationship where we were engaged, and it was the point of laying all the cards out on the table, and we needed to be honest, I think we felt like, with each other. And she was telling me about something she had struggled with, and she was deeply embarrassed about that. She'd been hospitalized for an eating disorder and spent months in that. And I was like, no big deal to me. I think that kind of surprised her. But see, what she didn't know at the time is when my head was like, that's it? That's all you got? If you really knew me, you'd be walking away. If you really knew who I am, what I am like. Because anybody who's been a victim of that, your first thought is, what did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong. And God's grace comes in and changes that. And the first issue of God's grace was my now wife. And we wrestled through that, and still. But this next song, I realized a few years ago that it wasn't all taken care of. That I had still carried on some of that, and it changed how I parented. And so the next set of pictures, that's part of what this song is about. It's a bridge between, there's me and my son. There's little Jonathan on the floor. And one of my favorite pictures, me holding him kind of smashing my nose. We lifted him up. And then there's him flying a plane back here to NBA. And this song, entitled Wistful Childhood, involves this guy over here. This is my teddy bear, in case you're wondering. This is actually, honest to goodness, original Smokey the Bear. You can't tell because it's been so loved and so worn over. You can't. Belt's broken, the helmet's there. But that was my friend as a little kid. That was my solace. That was my pal. That was That was my life. So this song will take us through the bridge of me processing what had happened and through the effect on as it carries on. And I encourage you that if there's something like that, to reach out to share with somebody, because God's grace can cover that. God can deal with that. If nothing else, the story of John chapter 4, which another song comes up later, when she's afraid to admit her life, and Jesus says, I know all about your life. You've been married 5 times, and the person you live with now isn't even your... I get it. That doesn't bother me. I love you anyway. That's the message I want you to hear tonight. The message of God's grace is no matter about your past, God has an answer for it in the now and the future. And so part of my inspiration comes from the final set of slides. I'll put these 2 songs together, and I'll just go run from one to the other. This is a picture of my mother's family. And in the top left, that's an honest-to-goodness sod house off the Oregon Trail, although they didn't get very far, settled in northern Kansas. And my mother is in the second picture. That's all my aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpa. My grandfather is oh man, he's wearing bib overalls. He's got his hand on my mother, who's in 8th grade. It just tells you how big my grandfather was a blacksmith. His hand was. You see, that's actually his hand. It's like right by my mother's face. She's a little girl there. My grandma's in the white in the middle. And the sod house, my grandmother is a little girl. It's kind of hard to see. She's just a few years old, but she's a blur because she couldn't sit still. And then the other picture there is my mother's graduation picture. My mother had a difficult life as well. Yeah, good family, bringing up. And Mom, if you're listening, hey, love you. She married young, really young. She had my oldest sister, young, and her first husband was killed in Okinawa. She hadn't graduated from high school yet. In fact, her and Eleanor are the only 2 that actually, one aunt only graduated from high school. Everybody else never made it through. My mother had not done high school at that point, but by this point she has a little girl. She's a single mom. What do? She buys a trailer. She lives with some brothers and sisters. She becomes a waitress. She waits tables. She does anything to pay the bills. And she goes back to school. And if I do my math right, which is probably pretty close, she graduates from high school around 28 years old. Because she was bound and determined she wasn't going to let something like that get behind her. It must have been, because again, there's no night school, so she's in classes with people like you. She actually was in the first graduating class at Thunderbird Academy. Hats off to Thunderbird Academy for letting a 27 to 28-year-old come back to school to finish. She lived in a little trailer they had parked by the airport at the time that they owned, and my oldest sister would go to the kindergarten. And her life is an inspiration because it doesn't matter what's happened in your past. God's grace can change that, and it makes a difference for the future. It's what you have. Everybody here has a story. Everybody here has had different things. Some of you have lost parents at a young age. Some of you are living away from home, and that's kind of hard. It's the first time you've been away from home, and you're half a world away from your actual home. Everybody has a story. And what you choose to do with it right now is the difference for all of us. So, first of 2 songs together, Wistful Childhood, and then a tribute to my mother called The Little Girl from Kansas. It'll help if I unmute the guitar.
Cloudy days and sunny friends, and pockets full of odds and ends, adventures and heroics of renown. Time flowed like a river then, new friends just around each bend. Everything is haloed in time's mist. stolen by a heartless thief, you must not cry. No questions and a trust try to coexist. Will my life always be like this? I think upon my only son, I reflect upon what I have done, scars he'll carry just because of me. My father too had tried his best, but veterans rarely learn to live undressed. He was caught in the struggle to be free. Is there hope beyond this now? Can love bring healing here somehow? Can we sing beyond this sad refrain? Heaven's where I long to be, reunions waiting there for me, where Father, Son, and I can finally meet. The three of us will finally get to see all that God originally meant to be. I remember a little boy and Smokey the Bear and Corduroy, the best of friends until the sun went down. Little girl from Kansas. A little girl from Kansas, born to life upon a farm, shadowing her mother, tending chickens in the yard. Halcyon days of yesteryear and times when life was hard. Times when life was hard. Her daddy was a blacksmith, and uncle owned a mill. The depression and the dust bowl took their toll upon the will. Family meant loyalty and love that never fails. A love that never fails. Life is living memories, and your past may be full of pain, but the choice to laugh or cry is all your own. Worry for the future or despair about the past is the surest way to turn your heart to stone. Little girl from Kansas, born the youngest one of 8. Her first love brought a baby girl, but was widowed by war's fate. She waited tables, went back to school, learned to love instead of hate. Chose to love instead of hate. She raised her family with strength and courage and grace and grit and such. But the greatest gift to the four of us is nothing you could touch. Oh, she taught us to love and how to carry on, learn to laugh when life is rough. Choose to laugh when life is tough. Life is living memories, and your past may be full of pain, but the choice to laugh and cry is all your own. Worry for the future or despair about the past is the surest way to turn your heart to stone. little girl from Kansas, you're forever in our heart. The book of John, wow, I love the book of John. There's so much, maybe it's because I identify with so many of the characters. And one of my favorites is a person we don't even know their name. Right? In John chapter 4, Jesus walks about 30 miles, gets his disciples up to go to meet this woman, because I'm sure in prayer the Father said, dude, there's this person you got to meet, and you have to be there at this time. Why at this time? It has to be this time. Go. So he goes. And the story, we just call her the woman at the well. We don't know her name, but she becomes the first evangelist. Right? Before Jesus sends out the 12, before Jesus sends out the 70, before the 500 sent, this is the first person that Jesus says, hey, I'm here, I'm the Messiah. And she goes and brings an entire town to Jesus. That's astonishing to me. We don't know her name, but an entire town owes her their salvation because they were willing to go out. And her only testimony was, come see the person who told me everything I did. Now, the reason I find that fascinating is because the only thing he talked about was her relationships. But see, her relationships had been people she trusted, and they had failed. And she had defined herself by how other people saw her. And Jesus saw that and said, that's okay. I don't see you that way. I see all of that, but I love you anyway. And maybe that's you tonight. Maybe your story is that you love too much. And what I mean by that is you love people who let you down routinely. And you choose people who hurt you. Then you understand this woman and the story of Jesus coming to her. The jar again is empty. It seems it's always dry. I have to face the world again. Can't let them see me cry. I grab the pot and don't look back and hurry on my way. The only time that's safe for me is in the middle of the day. Then I felt His grace fall down and like a blanket cover me. I'm wrapped up in the colors of His love. Help me help the world to see there's more than we've dreamed of. There's more than enough grace to go around. In silence I stare ahead. In silence I'd hoped we'd stay. Silence has become home to me. There's nothing left to say. But when He spoke of love to me, He said I was His own. Words I'd always longed to hear, words I'd never known. Then I felt His grace fall down and like a blanket cover me. I'm wrapped up in the colors of His love. Help me help the world to see there's more than we've dreamed of. There's more than enough grace to go around. But sometimes at night when I am most alone, my fears, failures, faults come to me. Just when I'm faced with just who I used to be, I lift my voice and You rescue me. Then I feel Your grace fall down and like a blanket cover me. I'm wrapped up in the colors of Your love. Help me help the world to see
God's love is not just words. I love the fact that she responded with just words. But one of the reasons I wanted the lighting, which unfortunately those of you who are watching streaming can't see, is I've lit one of the 4 major windows in here. And it's because love isn't just words. I'm stunned that the woman at the well responded to Jesus, and he didn't do any miracles. All he said was, I love you, and that was enough. But if the Gospel of John teaches nothing, it teaches that love isn't enough to be just words. In John chapter 14 at the end, he's talking to disciples, explaining everything. He says, okay, now I got to go do this so that the world knows that I love the Father. And he's talking about his death and crucifixion. Because love is more than words, it's actions as well.
It's more than a word. It's more than I'd heard or dare to believe. Love hung on a cross and counted it loss to live without me. Even in my darkest days when I am most alone and nothing seems to turn out. About the time that we have shared, a night aloud and you were by my side. Love, it's more than a word, it's more than I'd heard or dared to believe. Love hung on a cross and counted it loss to live without me. It's more than a word, it's more than I'd heard or dared to believe. Love hung on a cross and counted it loss to live without me. It's more than a word, it's more than I'd heard or dared to believe. Love hung on a cross and counted it loss to live without me. Love hung on a cross and counted it loss to live without me.
The only thing that helps me, if I'm going to be honest with trying to say how grace works in my life, is I have to hold on to that. The phrase, it sounds so trite, hold on to Jesus. But what I mean by that is, if Jesus is a treasure, right? And earlier, it's almost humorous. I've never lost my phone, ever. And earlier this evening, I was trying to use it for something, and I literally set it down. I just had it in my hand, and I set it down, and I couldn't find it. It's like it just magically vanished. And so Mr. Betts and PJ and I were looking. He calls it like 5 times. We can hear it buzzing, because I always keep it on silent, right, from my classroom, because I never have it ring, so because I don't want to disturb the class while I'm doing it. So it's not going to ring, but it's buzzing. We're listening. We think we can hear it buzzing. And we're literally all over this church. Can't find it. Well, Mr. Betts has to go. And Omar and Nathan come in. And so start calling it. And it's like, we can hear it. We can hear it. We're literally walking around the church, looking everywhere. And I'm like, where? I've only been here, here, and here. Where could I have lost it? Right? And the humorous part is, right, so Omar's over there by the amps, and he's got his hand on the rail. He goes, man, I can hear it. Man, I feel like, and the rail's buzzing. Wow, it's just, where is, we're looking, and like about 2 minutes ago, oh, it's sitting on the rail. And here's this thing that I value, but I've let it out of my life. I needed it, because it's got a perfect tuning amp. It's the thing that turns on those banner lights, When I say hold on to Jesus, I mean, don't let go. Because you see, Jesus is the voice that you're going to hear. When you hear those other voices that say you'll be no good, when you have even if you have a teacher, God forbid, that you have a teacher like I had in one particular grade, I lived in a box. Literally, that was her way to deal with me. Is brought a big refrigerator box and just put it around my desk in 3rd grade. I had no neighbors. And if you got out of line, I got pinched. Back and neck, hair, which you couldn't do now. But pretty abusive. If you've heard voices in your head like that, if you've heard somebody say, you'll never be any good, I don't care what it is. You'll never be good at music. You'll never be good at math. You'll never be good at whatever it is. The reason we hang on to Jesus is because Jesus has the voice that overrides all that. Jesus is my treasure, because Jesus is the one in those times when I hear myself, you'll never make it, you'll never be any good, you're only this, you're only that. He comes and says, no, that's not who you are. Yes, I see all that other stuff, but just like the woman in the well, I love you more. That's the story of grace, and that's why Jesus is my treasure. You'd think I wouldn't do that again.
Say that where your treasure is, your heart will follow after. Then my heart must be 1,000,000 miles away. 'Cause down here, Lord, I've seen too much pain, not enough of laughter. I yearn for you and a quiet place to stay. Jesus, be my treasure I'm seeking here below. Give me a reason for life. Let me know you're with me. Somehow let me know you'll still be my treasure when I die. So if now your life here seems undone, full of emptiness, frustration, a lover's joy is wrapped and waits for you. His name is Love, Emmanuel, desire of all the nations, abundant grace, His riches always new. Jesus, be my treasure I'm seeking here below. Give me a reason for life. Let me know you're with me. Somehow let me know you'll still be my treasure. You'll always be my treasure. Jesus, be my treasure when I die.
The next song is trying to illustrate that. It's also a little risky because every time I do this song, it's different. So it'll be an interesting experience. But what I'm trying to demonstrate musically is what I've been talking about, and that is the notion of grace. God pulls in these pieces of our life, whether it's your past that's been spared, whether it's the voices you've heard, whether it's somebody, it doesn't matter. God pulls it all together and weaves a tapestry just for you, a blanket of grace just for you. And what I'm going to try to illustrate is that musically by pulling in lots of different kind of things, and I'm going to try to use it and put it in a song style that's one of my favorites to illustrate a song that you may know, but you may not have heard it done this way. So we're going to see how this goes. And it'll be fun. Yeah, it's all right.
Amazing grace, amazing grace, amazing grace, amazing grace, amazing. When we've been there, oh, 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days, oh, to sing His praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound to me. Amazing grace is taken from John chapter 9, right? The blind man once was blind, now I see. When he was asked, that's his testimony. Only thing I know, once I was blind, now I see. And this song is taken from John chapter 14. In the middle of that, and I mentioned it earlier, so in the middle of fighting against, I don't know if fighting against a nervous breakdown or what, but in the stress of shutting the church and the stress of my father passing and the stress of my wife's surgical stuff and everything that was going on, and at the time we were deep into counseling because the marriage stuff was fragmenting left and right. And so I did what I thought was the rational thing. It's not. But everything seemed bleak, and it's also why I understand. So I struggled with life and identity and attempted suicide twice. And now, it's not funny, but it's like after the first time and you fail, you're like, man, I can't even do that right. It's like, wow, how low are you? And it was in the midst of this where the passages of John really began to come alive for me. And this verse, this passage over and over again is kind of what I clung to, and I always wanted to write something with it, and so I wrote it for a week of prayer. Speaking of Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And that's kind of what this comes down to, is Jesus' grace is the truth. Who He sees you is the truth. Not how other people see you, not even sometimes how we see ourselves. His view is the truth. Living that is the way. And the goal at the end is the life that He brings. The way, the truth, the life. Is there anything that I can know for certain, or is it only ad-lib through the final curtain that I take to heart these promises from Jesus? He says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Asking, seeking, Him to lead me.
one that's drawn from, again, I mentioned, there's so many stories that are good. One of my favorite ones is John chapter 8. It's probably already playing. You're going to probably want to rewind that. Just a guess. Rewind. Back. So I made a video as a track behind it with a little help from my friends. You might recognize some of the friends. John chapter 8 is the story of, a woman we don't know her name caught in adultery. And to me, it's one of the most profound stories of grace in the Bible. I don't have time to go into all, but man, the words Jesus uses in addressing her, the words Jesus uses in addressing them. And in the end, he says, and I love the way the King James actually words it. I think it's a better idea. Most of the time, I kind of like the way the New Century Version does it. But he says to her, and it gets actually at the heart underneath. He says, does any man condemn you? And she says, no man, Lord. And he says, neither do I. And his response isn't about being men. His response is, no man may condemn you, and I, as God, don't either. And that's the ultimate story of grace. This last song called I Will Shout, I Will Sing tells the story of 3 people. And maybe you fit in this category somewhere. The first person who found themselves through no fault of their own, completely on the outside of everything. Everything that had happened to them was not their fault. And they couldn't do anything about it. It's the way they were born, their situation. And Jesus comes to them and changes it. And maybe that's you. And Jesus can come and change you. The second person kind of got it on their own. We're told, and if you follow the story around, they kind of began to dabble with stuff that really wasn't healthy, and it ended up putting them in a lifestyle that was completely off the track. But that didn't push them away from Jesus. And Jesus comes to set them free. And the third person, their only mistake was in loving and trusting people. And they were betrayed by that. So maybe that's your story, and they're one of those 3. As we close out, I Will Shout, I Will Sing is a story of 3 people meeting Jesus and a life of grace.
Clad in the garments of shame, a never-ending cycle of pain, I could only hang my head. Waiting for the crushing stones, I was never to sing, free to bring an offering, a sacrifice of praise to his name. So I will tell, I will show, I'll let all creation know, he is the King of kings to me. He is the King of kings to me. And if you ever listen to the real version on the CD, you'll go, wow, he skipped a whole section there. Yeah, because changed his key and I needed the music to tempo, and there's an a cappella section anyway. So anyway, we want that. But thank you. That was so nice of you guys. That was awesome. Instead of thank yous, I want to mention the people behind the cameras, Zarina and Omar, and the people at the sound, Nathan, and the people at the sound booth. Coach, thank you for that. Also want to mention a thank you to my daughter, and my mom and brother and family. And thank you to Hayden, the first person who bought the CD, and the first one I signed, at least. I don't know who streams stuff online because I don't get that thing, but the first person I actually signed the one CD. So thank you. I love this guy. He's such a great supporter. And thank you to my wife, for whom none of this would be possible. You are amazing. Thank you. I hope your hour was well spent, and if nothing else, I hope you learned that no matter what's going on in your life, in your past, God loves you and can change your life for the better. That's the message of grace. Thank you, and have a good night and a blessed Sabbath. Oh.